Arrogant teacher tests, black student in public, not knowing. She has genius IQ and photographic memory. She thought it was just another day at school, a routine lesson, another teacher's challenge. But when that teacher's eyes narrowed and the room grew tense, it was clear this wasn't about learning at all. It was about power, prejudice, and humiliation in front of everyone. What that teacher didn't know was that the student he tried to break carried a secret far greater than his arrogance. A secret that would turn his cruel test into a moment no one could ever forget. Her name was Maya. To most people, she was just another student, quiet, focused, the kind of girl who slipped through the crowded hallways without drawing much attention. She loved books more than anything else, especially the ones filled with puzzles and complex ideas that most people avoided. Numbers and patterns came to her as naturally as breathing, but she never felt the need to boast. For Maya, school was supposed to be a place of learning, not competition. That morning she arrived early, clutching her notebook and sitting in the front row like she always did. The classroom buzzed with chatter, but she kept to herself, scribbling quietly. To her classmates, she seemed ordinary. To her teachers, she was polite but reserved. No one truly saw the depth of her mind or the quiet brilliance she carried with her. But there was one teacher who noticed her silence and mistook it for weakness. He had a reputation for being sharp-tongued, for singling out students who didn't meet his expectations. And when his eyes landed on Maya that day, something shifted in the room. The air grew heavier, the conversations faded, and it became clear he was about to make her an example. What Maya didn't know as she sat there, nervously straightening her papers, was that she was about to face a challenge designed not to test her knowledge, but to expose her. A public test filled with condescension and prejudice meant to strip away her confidence. What no one could have predicted was how badly it would backfire. The moment Maya looked up and saw the teacher's expression, she knew something was wrong. His smirk wasn't the kind of smile that encouraged. It was the kind that promised a storm. He called her name sharply, louder than necessary, silencing the room. All eyes turned toward her. "Since you seem so quiet," he said, pacing in front of the class, "let's see if you actually know anything." The laughter from a few students stung, but Maya forced herself to stand. Her hands trembled slightly, but she hid them under her desk. She had been through uncomfortable moments before, yet this one felt different. This wasn't curiosity. This was a test, a public trial meant to embarrass her. He began with simple questions, the kind anyone could answer. Maya responded carefully, softly, each time correct. His smile faded. Then his voice grew sharper, each question harder than the last. Math problems that most adults would struggle with. Historical dates twisted into tricky riddles. Scientific. Concepts that weren't even part of their curriculum. Still, Maya answered. Slowly, steadily, she worked through each one. But instead of acknowledging her intelligence, he leaned in closer, sneering. "Lucky guesses," he muttered just loud enough for the class to hear. Whispers spread across the room. Some students looked impressed, others uncomfortable, but none dared to speak. The tension grew heavier with every word he threw at her. It wasn't about teaching anymore. It was about tearing her down, and everyone knew it. Then he shifted. "Let's try something harder," he said, pulling out a long passage from memory and demanding she repeat it back word for word. The room went silent. Everyone knew this was impossible. He wanted her to fail, to stumble in front of her peers so he could prove his point. Maya's chest tightened. The weight of the entire class pressed against her shoulders. She could feel the humiliation waiting just seconds away, ready to erupt if she slipped. Her teacher's grin widened as if he could already taste victory. But what he didn't realize was that Maya had a gift, a rare one she had kept hidden for years: photographic memory. She could picture every word, every phrase, as if the text had been burned into her mind. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and began. Each word rolled off her tongue with precision, line after line, sentence after sentence, her voice steady, her memory flawless. Gasps rippled through the classroom. Chairs creaked as students leaned forward, jaws dropping. Even the ones who laughed at first sat frozen, eyes wide. The impossible was happening right in front of them, but Maya didn't stop. She finished the passage exactly, every detail perfect, and then stood silent, waiting. For the first time, the teacher's face faltered. His smirk twisted into disbelief, his confidence cracking. He opened his mouth to respond, but no words came. The power he tried to wield over her had slipped away in an instant, and yet Maya could feel it wasn't over. The air was thick with something unspoken. Anger, pride, humiliation. This wasn't just about a test anymore. It was about to become something much bigger. The classroom was silent, the air thick with disbelief. Maya had done the impossible, every word repeated flawlessly, her calm voice cutting through the tension like a blade. For a moment it seemed undeniable. She had proven herself. But instead of acknowledging her brilliance, the teacher's face twisted with something darker, anger. His pride had been shattered, and he wasn't about to let a black student, quiet and unassuming, expose him in front of his own class. He slammed his hand against the desk, startling everyone. "That's enough," he barked, his voice echoing. "You think repeating words makes you smart? Anyone can memorize. Real intelligence is something else, and clearly you don't have it." Gasps filled the room. A few students shifted uncomfortably, their eyes darting between Maya and the teacher. Some wanted to speak, but fear kept them frozen. It wasn't just about academics anymore. It was about control, about silencing someone who dared to challenge him. Maya's heart pounded in her chest. She had done everything right, everything he asked, yet here he was, still tearing her down. His words weren't about her answers. They were about who she was. And suddenly, she understood. No matter how perfect, how brilliant, or how flawless she proved herself, it would never be enough for someone blinded by prejudice. For a split second, she felt small, like the room was closing in, like her voice could never matter. But then she noticed something. Dozens of eyes locked on her, wide with awe, filled not with pity, but with respect. Her classmates had seen the truth. They had seen her strength. The teacher had wanted to humiliate her. Instead, he had revealed himself. And as Maya stood there, her silence louder than any argument, the balance of power in that room shifted forever. Because now, it wasn't just Maya's fight. It was a moment no one present would ever forget when the bell finally rang. The classroom didn't erupt into its usual chatter. Students gathered their things in silence, but their eyes lingered on Maya. Some looked ashamed for laughing earlier. Others looked inspired, as if they had just witnessed something that couldn't be undone. The teacher avoided her gaze, shuffling papers on his desk, his authority shaken. He had tried to reduce her, but in the process, he exposed himself for his bias, his cruelty, and his fear of what he could not control. Maya didn't need to gloat. She didn't need to say a single word. Her brilliance had spoken for her, and the truth was undeniable. As she walked out of the classroom, her steps were steady, her head high. But inside, she carried the weight of what had happened. It wasn't just about one test or one teacher. It was about a system that too often tries to silence voices like hers, to question worth where it should be celebrated. Maya's story is not unique. Every day, countless others face the same dismissive looks, the same attempts to strip away dignity and potential because of the color of their skin. And yet, like Maya, they continue to rise, to prove, to endure. The question is not whether brilliance exists in these students. It does. The question is, when will the world finally stop doubting it? This story isn't just about one girl in one classroom. It's about us. About the kind of world we're creating and the choices we make when we see injustice unfold. So ask yourself, when you witness it, will you stay silent? Or will you stand? So that stories like Maya's become the exception and not the rule?